I'll just say good afternoon again. My name's Tice Winkleblack. I'm with the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council on the Board of Directors, and I'd like to welcome everyone to a presentation by Deb Dunkhase today. In addition to the people who are joining us in person today, we also will be joined by people through City Channel 4's live stream. So welcome to those folks as well. We'd like to thank our members and supporters who have renewed their annual membership because the ICFRC depends on memberships and donations to continue to run. And if you haven't yet had the opportunity to do so, you can do that on our website at icfrc.org. We depend on the financial support of our members and friends to enable us to continue to provide our high-quality international educational programs at no cost to our community. So thanks to all of those who are able to support us. We also want to recognize a very special sponsor today. Dorothy Paul is a program sponsor for today's speaker. She is a longtime member and supporter of the ICFRC, and we deeply value her friendship and support. Thanks so much, Dorothy. We also want to thank our annual sponsors and organizational supporters, Midwest One Bank, which includes the use of this conference room, and for our in-person programs, the University of Iowa's international programs, the University of Iowa's Honors Program, the University of Iowa Public Policy Center, and the Stanley UI Foundation Support Organization. We thank City Channel 4 for their support in live streaming all of our in-person programs this fall. We cannot say what amazing partners City Channel 4 is, and warm thank you to them. We also thank City Channel 4 and the UI Digital Libraries for making our programs available to online audiences. We are also grateful to the Iowa Arts Council for its financial support through the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs. ICFRC has adopted the Native American Land Acknowledgement prepared for the City of Iowa City's ad hoc Truth and Reconciliation Commission and Human Rights Commission. We recognize that our home community of Iowa City now occupies the homelands of Native American nations to whom we owe our commitment and dedication. The area of Iowa City was within the homelands of the Iowa, Meskwaki, and Sauk, and because history is complex and time goes far back beyond our memory, we also acknowledge the ancient connections of many other indigenous peoples here. The history of broken treaties and forced removal that dispossessed indigenous peoples of their homelands was and is an act of colonization and genocide that we cannot erase. We implore the Iowa City community to commit to understanding and addressing these injustices as we work toward equity, restoration, and reparations. As we get started, I would like to cover some in-person and live streaming etiquette tips. Following our speaker's presentation, about 12:45 p.m., we will have a 15-minute Q&A. For those of you who are here in the audience, we will ask you to just raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question, and we'll bring a microphone to you so that you can ask your question via the microphone for our live streaming audience. If you are watching us via the live stream, you can text your questions to ICFRC at 319-600-2588. This number is also on the ICFRC website. It's now my pleasure to introduce Deb Dunkhase, who will speak today about the Iowa Most Project, bringing miles of smiles to the Indigenous Mayans of Guatemala. Deb Dunkhase is the project leader of the Iowa Most Project. For over 30 years, Deb has dedicated herself to education in the state of Iowa. Her work has involved direct teaching with elementary level students and leadership roles working closely with parent and teacher groups to bridge the gap between formal and informal education. In 2019, Deb retired from her role as the executive director for the Iowa Children's Museum. Since retirement, Deb has created a new nonprofit nonprofit, since I should say retirement, Deb has created a new nonprofit called Open Heartland, serving over 250 Central American and Mexican immigrant families in Johnson County as they navigate through poverty, lack of food, housing insecurity, and the daily threat of deportation and separation from their children, all compounded by COVID-19. Deb also leads the annual Rotary District 6000 Iowa Miles of Smiles team, Cleft, palate, and cataract medical mission to serve the Indigenous Mayans of Guatemala. And in that role is the role in which I mainly have interacted with Deb over the years, and am excited to hear her present to us today. So please join me in welcoming Deb Dunkhase.
Thank you so much for having me today. Iowa Most is a heart project for me. It's work that I love. I feel incredibly privileged to be involved with this project, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. But before I start, when you look at the photo that's up on the screen, what do you feel? What do you think? What's your reaction to the photo? Just shout it out. Happy. Joy. I know you all have masks on, so I can't really see your faces, but don't they make you smile? When you see these faces, it just makes your heart happy. The most beautiful thing in the world, in my humble opinion, is a child's smile. There's nothing like it. The next best thing is knowing that you've played some role, some part in helping to make that child smile, and helping to make that smile happen. For kids in Guatemala born with cleft lip and or palate birth defects, smiles don't come so easy. Their lives are filled with overwhelming hardship. There's not a parent in the entire world, no matter where you live, no matter what your social status is, your economic status, there is not a parent who doesn't want their child to grow up healthy and happy, ready to make the most of every opportunity that comes across their path. We know that to be true. And that is the basis of the Iowa Most project, the Miles of Smiles team. We are a Rotary District 6000 project that, in partnership with the Huehue Club of Huehuetenango, we serve the indigenous people of Guatemala. If you've forgotten where Guatemala is located in the heart of Central America. Guatemala is home to an estimated 14 million people, half of whom are children. So they have a very young population. And when you look at the map, the part of Guatemala that we work in is called Huehuetenango. Huehuetenango is a huge department, like a state, but there's also a town of Huehuetenango. It's right under number 9, and that is where our mission is located. We operate out of a private hospital in Huehuetenango. Despite more than 50% of Guatemala's population being employed in the coffee and chocolate export business, Guatemala is the poorest country in Latin America. More than half of the population lives below the national poverty line of $3.20 per person per day. So I'm going to repeat that. The national poverty line is $3.20 per person per day. And 23% of the population of Guatemala live in extreme poverty. Poverty among Guatemala's Mayan indigenous group, which make up more than 40% of the total population, averages 79% of the people live in poverty. And 40% of the indigenous population live in extreme poverty. Extreme poverty is thought of as $1.90 per person per day. $1.90. How many of us, including myself, we live such lives of so many resources, we'll spend $1.90 several times a day, multiple times a day. It's very little money for a family to live on. Nearly 1/2 of Guatemala's children under age 5 are chronically malnourished. One of the highest malnutrition rates in the world is in Guatemala. 8 in 10 indigenous children suffer from chronic malnutrition, a condition that weakens their immune system and doesn't allow their bodies to fully develop. The Milken Institute School of Public Health has stated that 1 in 600 babies born in Guatemala are born with cleft birth defects, compared to 1 in 700 babies in the US. The stats are not really that different between our two countries. However, in the remote, rural, central and western highlands of Guatemala, this number almost doubles. So we know that conditions for cleft birth defects in Guatemala are serious. In 2005, local Johnson County Rotarians heard the cry for help from Guatemala. Dr. Bill O'Lean, Dr. John Kennedy, Gary and Nancy Pasha, and Dr. Pete Wallace formed the Iowa Most medical team, and exemplifying service above self in true Rotary fashion, Iowa Most became part of the solution. This beautiful child is why Iowa Most exists. Iowa Most has provided cleft lip and palate surgeries to the children of Guatemala for the past 17 years. That's a little remarkable for a medical mission to travel to one country for 17 consecutive years. Why do we not travel around the world delivering these much-needed surgeries to other locations? It's really because Guatemala has become our second home. The Guatemalans are our family. In Guatemala, children born with cleft birth defects are often ostracized from their local community. They're not allowed to go to school. They're hidden away from society for their entire childhood. Their health suffers from issues surrounding malnutrition. They suffer severe dental problems and often serious hearing problems. What causes cleft birth defects? Well, 10% of the cases are exclusively environmental in origin, 26% genetic, and the remaining 65% are a result of the mixture of both. Malnutrition is a major cause of abnormalities. An estimated 50 to 75% of cleft defects are preventable with folic acid, zinc, and vitamin B6A. In most developed countries, like the United States, babies who are born with this condition are operated upon within the first few months of birth. Within the audience today, I'm sure there are many of you who have known families that have children born with cleft birth defects, and by the time they're 2, 3 years old, you'd never know these kids had the defect. Here's an example of a young boy born in the U.S. with cleft lip and palate, and by the time he's 3 years old, perfectly healthy and leading a normal life. In Guatemala, surgeries just aren't possible due to poverty and lack of resources. Without the help of Iowa Most, Guatemalan children born in the remote Western Highlands would live lives of hopelessness. And certainly there are medical missions that go to Guatemala, but they remain in the capital city of Guatemala City and Antigua. For our families who live so far away, to travel to these cities is just impossible for so many reasons. So now I'd like to introduce you to some of our kids. The first one that you see here is Afner. And Afner was one of the first children to receive cleft surgery from Iowa Most in the very first year that we did the mission. Afner's mother worked at the hospital, so it was pretty easy to convince her that Afner could benefit from this surgery. And this is a photo you can see in the flyer, Afner as a baby, and today he's about 16 years old and thriving. He's going to school, he has a bright future ahead of him, and he's just a really happy young man. This is Mario. Mario's story is really interesting because the word in Guatemala spreads about Iowa Most through word of mouth. It's not like marketing in the U.S. We're not able to, do TV ads or radio stations because these people just live too remotely. So how they find out is strictly by word of mouth. In Mario's village, someone had told him about the Iowa Most mission coming to Huehuetenango. So he decided he would come. He's 16 years old. And his parents said, no, you're not going because it's too dangerous. We don't know this team from the United States. We don't trust them. In Guatemala, there are a lot of misconceptions about medical practice. A lot of Guatemalans, especially Indigenous people, believe that if you enter a hospital, you'll never leave. It's too dangerous. Mario didn't accept any of that, and he ran away from home. He lived about 5, 6, 7 hours from Huehuetenango. He made his way to Huehue, and he showed up at the hospital, had the surgery all on his own. Everybody fell in love with Mario. He was an amazing young man, and you can see him, his post-photo, post-surgery. He's about 16 years old, and he shared with Nancy Pasha that now he's going to be able to kiss a girl. So big changes in Mario's life. This is Sarah, and Sarah came to us through a social worker that we know in Huehuetenango. Sarah lives in a remote village. She was born to really young parents, 15-year-old parents. They just didn't know how to cope with Cleft, with a cleft birth defect. They didn't have the tools, they didn't have the knowledge, the resources. And so Sarah was left on the church steps. Fortunately, a local village person found Sarah, knew her grandmother, and took Sarah to her abuela. And the woman you can see in the background, that's Sarah's grandmother, her abuela. The social worker knew of the situation, convinced Grandma to bring Sarah to Huehuetenango for the surgery. It was really, really hard for Sarah because Sarah was living in isolation. The grandmother didn't take Sarah out of the house. She had no friends. She wasn't allowed to play around the village, to go outside and play, nothing. She was hidden from the rest of the society. So she did a lot of crying when she came to Huehue. Not only had she not seen medical people all dressed in their medical garb or people with different color skin, she had seen no people. And so this was a very hard experience for her. But she had the surgery, everything went great. 6 weeks later, the social worker sent this photo to me. And not only does Sarah look amazing, but she's outside her house. So I'm imagining this wonderful life that Sarah's having. A year later, when we're in Huehue, Sarah comes running in the hospital, jumps in my arms, gives me a big hug. The thing that's most touching is that Sarah has a huge smile on her face. So today, she's in school, she's learning, she has friends, she's leading a normal life. This is Alejandro, and Alejandro's mom and his mother and father left their village. They had to walk 3 hours to take a 12-hour bus ride to get to Huehuetenango. Alejandro was under a year old when he came to us for his first surgery. And the rest of the kids, 5 other kids, left at home with a 14-year-old. It's a tough decision for families to make, to bring their kids to Huehue for the surgery. However, what happens when you're able to change a child's life this dramatically? You bond with the family. You become friends. You build relationships with the family. And so every year, Mom and Dad bring Alejandro back to see us so we can see what a healthy, bouncing boy he's become. And this is the most recent photo. He is just an absolutely stunning young boy who's going to have a bright future ahead of him. Bresley came to us when she was less than a year old, and Tice will recognize her because Tice has been on a few of our missions with us. Bresley came with her mother, her grandmother, and her twin sister. She was less than a year old when she had the surgery. The surgery went really well. It's somewhat remarkable to think of Bresley being born with cleft and her sister was not. To think that had she not had the surgery, the cleft palate surgery, their lives would have been dramatically different. Her sister would have gone to school, she would have had a career, probably grown up and had a family, but not Bresley. Bresley would have had none of those opportunities. However, we found her. She came to Iowa Most. This is Bresley at 1 year later, post-surgery. And this is Bresley 2 years ago when we saw her at our last mission. And you can barely tell the difference between the two girls, so her life is amazingly improved. It's been remarkable. Braden came from a town called La Democracia, and Braden's mom brought him for his surgery. He was born with cleft lip. Beautiful, beautiful, sweet little baby. His mother, Maybelline, sent me this photo just a few weeks ago to show me how well Braden is doing. He's growing up really healthy and a bouncing young boy. I think everyone's favorite child, everyone is in love with Fernando. In this photo, Fernando is just 13 months old, and at 7 months old, he had to have open heart surgery. He also suffers from cleft lip and palate. He is an amazingly tough little guy. According to his dad, who's holding him, and Dad is a nurse in Guatemala City, Fernando quickly recuperated from his heart surgery, and Dad was certain that his son would do well with the surgeries that Iowa Most could begin. Fernando needs several surgeries as he grows through life. It's interesting to me, too, that his dad is a nurse in Guatemala City, yet he travels every year, the 6 or 7 hours to get to Huehuetenango, both time and expense, because he trusts the Iowa Most team. Having that relationship that we've gotten to know him, that he feels we're friends, he texts me, he calls me when he has questions, it means a lot. It means that a family knows that we care about their kids. He knows we love Fernando. And this past year, Fernando's been having a lot of dental work done in Guatemala City so that he's going to be able to return to Huehuetenango, our next mission, and have his final revisional surgery for his cleft lip. These kids really are not just our patients, they're our friends. These kids are our forever friends. One of the things that makes the work that Iowa Most does so impactful and so successful are the relationships that we build. And none of the work would be possible without the relationship we have with the Rotary Club of Huehuetenango. We have a true, authentic partnership with the Rotarians of Huehue. Whatever skills and services we bring to Guatemala, they are at the request of the Guatemalan people. Working with local Rotarians, we're able to identify needs and determine if Iowa Most can help. It's so incredibly important in international projects, international missions, to make sure that you are listening to the people, that you are sensitive to the cultural perspectives of the people that you're serving. The last thing in the world that Iowa Most wants to do, any member of our team, is go to Guatemala and say, we know exactly what you need, we know what's best, and place our values, our perspectives on these people. And so the partnership we have with the Rotarians of Huehue is really critical to our success. They're able to identify the needs of their local population, and then we're able to work with them to determine what's the most valuable way, how do we go to Guatemala and help people more than we harm them. Here's an example. In 2017, the Rotarians of Huehuetenango told us about the tremendous problem that Guatemalans have with cataracts and asked for our help. Many of the indigenous Guatemalans live at high altitude where the sun is really intense, and they do not have the resources to have protective eyewear, and so there are a lot of cataracts that are formed. We did our research. It turns out that 0.71% of Guatemala's population is blind, compared to 0.15% in the US. At least 80,000 Guatemalans are blind from cataracts. This is a blindness that can be cured with a cost-effective, very quick 15 or less minute surgery. I know because I just had cataract surgery a couple weeks ago. So we put together a team, a cataract surgical team. We had 3 surgeons, a team of nurses, sterilizers, all the non-medical logistics that we need. We let people know that we were coming to Huehuetenango, and people came from far and wide to have cataract surgery. There have not been any cataract surgeries that we're aware of in the Department of Huehuetenango until Iowa Most went. People came by the truckload from the border of Guatemala and Mexico, from Barrias mainly. They stood in line for hours waiting to be seen. During our mission, our cataract mission, we screened about 125 to 30 people, and we performed 105 surgeries in a 5-day surgical mission. Generally, the people that had the surgeries were older. This man had not been able to see for, I think he told us, the last 15, 20 years. And when we only did surgery in one eye, when we took off his bandage, I can't even begin to tell you how that feels to be able to bring sight back to someone who's not been able to see. He walked in all bent over with a cane, and he walked out with a huge bounce in his step. As you can see, though, not every person that we provided cataract surgeries for was old. We provided surgeries for several young people as well. This is Juana. And Juana is from Barrias on the Mexican-Guatemalan border. Juana is 16 years old in this photo. She has 3 kids, including the little bambino that's peeking around her shoulder in the photo, and she's pregnant. And Juana has been blind since the birth of her first child. The cataracts were developed for some reason because of the pregnancies. And so the baby on her back, Juana's never even seen. And the baby that she'll be having in a few months, she would also be dealing with her blindness. She came with her husband and the baby on her back. She was with us for 4 days, and so we got to know Juana fairly well. She came in very shy, not really sharing too much, really, really quiet, as you can imagine you would be if you were in a strange place. A hospital, there's lots of noise, lots of new people. However, by the end of 3 days, we were able to build a friendship with Juana, to warm her up, to do a lot of talking, help ease her fears. And when we took off the bandages, and again, we did only one eye. She'll be back again this spring when we return in May. When we took the bandage off that one eye and she could see her baby for the first time, it was remarkable. We were teasing her that when she saw her husband, who she hadn't actually seen in many years, she might change her mind about him, but she went home with him, so I'm pretty sure that didn't happen. The third leg of the Iwamos project has to do with education. The Guatemalan Ministry of Education reports that the percentage of children completing their primary education has increased from 39% in the early 90s to 72.5% in 2006. That's great news for the kids of Guatemala, right? However, when you take a closer look at the data, it reveals a deep and ongoing disparity between the educational achievement and opportunities available for urban children of Ladino descent, and these are mainly the children in Guatemala City, Antigua, as compared to children of Mayan descent living in the rural areas. Because our friends in the Rotary Club asked for our help with education, we decided that there are things that we can do. And so because of the current state of Guatemala, while it's improving, it still remains significantly underfunded, and it's estimated that less than 15% of all classrooms nationwide meet minimum standards for classroom space, for teaching materials, classroom equipment and furniture, and water sanitation. And then, of course, in the remote rural villages of Guatemala, where our patients come from, the percentage drops to 0%. So there's a huge need, and we decided that though we are a medical mission, there are things we can do to help with educational outreach. And so we created educational and health outreach programs to serve these communities where our patients primarily live and where the Huehue Tenango Rotarians already were doing water, health, sanitation, and education work. In this photo, the kids are holding brand new toothbrushes. We developed some dental programming that included giving kids toothbrushes, showing them how to use them. We even wrote a song to help them remember that you need to brush twice a day. This photo is of a school that we worked with called La Escuela en las Nubes, the school in the clouds, and it was high up in the mountains, quite a drive from where the hospital is that we work. When we arrived at the school for the first time, you can see that it's exposed to the elements. Plastic sheeting on the sides, some metal sheeting is held up by sticks, the roof is, and there are about 40 students that attend this school from preschool through high school age. Dirt floor as well. A few years back, a really generous group decided they would give the students brand new school desks, which sounds like such a wonderful idea, but it's actually a perfect example of how the donors weren't really listening to the needs of the people, right? Because these desks within a year and a half were totally destroyed because they are exposed to the elements. So they were getting rained on, snowed on, wind through. So within a couple years, the kids had no desk and they're back to the dirt floor. What we decided that we could do, because we were asked to help do this, is they wanted to build a new school. And so the school, the teacher, the Rotarians asked us if we could possibly help them build a new school. And we said, yes, of course, we can try to do that. And so we did a very simple fundraiser. We raised enough money to build a cement block school building. And there was no labor cost because all of the parents and the Rotarians pitched in and did all the hard labor. And now these 40 students have a beautiful new school. There are 2 classrooms, so there's some separation between ages, which is wonderful. Every year when we go, we take school supplies, we take lots and lots and lots of books, and we always do story time aloud. This is something I learned from my daughter's kindergarten teacher, that there's nobody who doesn't love being read to. And so we read a story aloud to the kids, and these are 2 of our team members who are acting out a story of the very hungry caterpillar, and the kids loved it. They're not generally read aloud to it, so it's something kind of special that we're able to bring to this school. One of my most personal, touching moments in all the years I've done this is we do these read aloud story times. The kids love it, and we act it up. We use different voices. We try to really be expressive when we read to the kids. And about 4 years ago, when I left the school, I said, okay, next time I come, I'll bring books and I want you to read to me. I want to listen to you read a story aloud to me. So the next year when we come, this beautiful young lady hops up out of her seat and she's like, I'm ready. And she read a story aloud to our entire team. It's just like a very, very sweet, powerful moment. You don't often know what difference you can make in a person's life by something as simple as reading a story aloud to them. We work with several schools in the Huehuetenango area, and we try to find out from the school what they need before we come. This year, when we return, the schools are asking us not to come in person, of course, because of COVID, but they've given us a list of school supplies that they need and books, things of that nature. So we'll be bringing those to the schools when we go down. Not only do we provide educational materials, but when we visit the schools, we use that as an opportunity to help health education. One of the things that we do is we are able to provide fluoride and apply fluoride to the kids' teeth. The kids have no dental support in these mountain highlands. There are no dentists. They do not go to the dentist. Rarely do they have toothbrushes. So we're able to not only apply the fluoride, but we train the teachers how to apply fluoride, leave the fluoride for the teachers to do a second or third treatment during the school year. And our team loves doing it. It helps our team members who primarily work in surgical rooms to get to know the patients better, to get to know the stories of the families, to help understand where these families come from and why coming to a hospital is such a fearful experience for them. So it helps us build those relationships and build those friendships. And then, of course, we also, because the kids live on dirt floors, we do some deworming. It's not the kids' favorite thing, but they do it. Their favorite thing has to be the books. Not only are we building libraries in the schools, but we give kids books to take home. Rarely do these children have a book that they own themselves in their house. We take time to read to the kids when we're there, to listen to them, tell us stories about the books. There's lots of sharing and bartering going on. They trade books. It's a really special thing to be able to do this alongside the cataract medical mission that we do and the Cleft mission that we do. Our Iowa Most team right now is getting ready for our 2022 mission. I just recently returned from a trip to Guatemala in August to meet with the Rotary Club, with the hospital team, to make sure that we were ready to return during COVID. We had to skip 2021 and not do a mission. That means there are lots of kids there that did not receive the surgeries they need, and lots of adults who need cataract surgery that are there waiting for us. This year, we're going in March instead of January to help the holidays calm down from potential COVID exposure among families. We're reducing the size of our team. Normally, we take about 35 members. We're reducing it to under 30 this year. The cost of an annual mission is right at $50,000. Two really amazing things happened when I was there in August that are really strengthening the Iowa Most mission. And it all comes from the last 15 years of building relationships and getting to know people and building that trust among the Guatemalans. It turns out that one of the people that we know in town, he's a Rotarian, he's just become the chief of the Department of Public Health for Huehuetenango, which is a very big deal. He's the high boss for the Department of Public Health. And he invited us for a meeting and said that he would, now that he has awareness of all the families who live in Huehuetenango, all the families who live in the remote areas, he is going to do all the patient recruitment for us. So whereas before everything was word of mouth, maybe people heard about us, maybe they didn't, now we're actually going to, with Dr. Robles' help, create a patient database. That's a huge, huge asset to Iowa Most and to our plans for the future. The second big change was Dr. Robles just happens to know El Comandante of the Guatemalan Army that's stationed at the military base in Huehuetenango. So he said, come on with me. We're going to go have coffee with El Comandante. And we did. We said, yes, sounds interesting. And the military base, to help us with the social distancing, we're going to be doing all the COVID testing. The patients will stay on the military base with their families to help keep them more isolated from community members. So these are two new relationships that we've made that I think are really going to help strengthen the work that we do and help us have more impact. Everything we do, everything that makes Iowa Most successful has to do with building relationships. We work collaboratively, side by side. We may bring a team that has the skills, but we're not the experts. We need the local people to help us do the work that we do. And so we work with local dentists. We work with local doctors, with local ENTs. We work with families to find out what their needs are. And we have fun. We do a lot of, we spend time together, passing time, dancing, eating, singing, whatever it is that helps us get to know each other and lessen those barriers between our cultures. One of the things that I think is most impactful that we have found out about the Guatemalan culture is that it's not easy for them to ask for help. Here in the US, if somebody needs help, most people will just say, hey, can you give me some help? I need some help. Can you tell me how to find some help? That doesn't happen in that culture. So the only way to help really determine what the needs are of the Guatemalan people is to be their friend. You can't just come flying in on a jet and stay there for 5 days and expect to make a difference. You have to build relationships. Some of our relationships get kind of crazy and fun. These are a couple of our team members, like, having a good time. And yet the work we do, we take very, very seriously. The team that we take is extremely qualified. We take our work very, very seriously. We have always had the child's health as the utmost priority when we go to Guatemala. So safety is a huge concern to us. And we love the kids. There's no way you can connect with these little people and not fall in love with them. We do a lot of play with them, we sing with them, we dance with them, we act out songs and stories. And there's a lot of smiling that goes on. When I first joined this project, the best advice that Gary Pasha, who did my work before I currently do, the best advice he ever gave me was, you don't really need to know the language, you don't really need to understand what people are saying, just smile all the time. And he was right. Smiling is a huge, huge piece of communication when you don't speak the same language. I have been studying Spanish, trying to ease some of those language barriers, but smiling is one of the reasons that we are able to connect so well in Guatemala. Smiling and lots of touching and hugging. These kids are very affectionate, and we respect that. We respond to that. We love it. We love spending time talking to the kids and finding out about their lives and their families and how they grow up. Just because they live in poverty or extreme poverty, they're still kids. They're just like any kid you would know and love. And so it's really an incredible gift for us to be able to build these relationships. And it's not just out of hospital hours that this happens. It happens with all the docs, with the nurses. These kids are very special kids who need some extremely special help that we feel very privileged that we're able to provide with Iowa Most. And as I said before, there's a lot of hugging that goes on. For Iowa Most and the work that we do, the medical work is extremely important. These kids without cleft surgeries wouldn't have a normal life. They wouldn't be able to go to school. There's probably no way they would ever have the surgery. Without the cataract surgeries that we provide, blindness would prevail among many, many people that today does not because of Iowa Most. But the most important thing that Iowa Most does, what makes our mission very unique among many medical missions around the world, is that we build relationships. We really, truly, deeply value the friendships, and we love the kids. If anyone would like more information about Iowa Most, we do have a website, www.iowamost.org. If you see it in your heart that you would like to financially support Iowa Most, you can do that on the website, and my contact information is on the website as well. So if you want to chat further about the mission, I love talking about Iowa Most with anyone. We can grab coffee, or if you have questions, let me know. Any questions right now from anyone in the audience?
I will help moderate here.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
I'm going to push in front of you
Okay.
for a sec. I'll let you take a quick glass.
Okay.
Drink of water if you want.
Thanks.
Deb, thank you for your presentation, and I'm sure that there will be questions, but in order to remind people how to ask questions, I'll just note that if you're here in the audience, I will come around with a microphone. And then you'll be able to ask Deb your question. If you're watching via live stream on City Channel 4's live stream site, then you can text 319-600-2588 to ask a question. So I will help moderate, and raise your hand right now if you know you're going to have a question here. I'm going to, oh, good, excellent. Because I can ask questions. Thank you. Okay, Janet.
Yeah, can you talk about some of the things you've learned from the Rotarians there that you may not have thought of before when you were going down to help you prepare?
You know, I thank you for that question, Janet. So I think one of the most impactful learnings that came to me from the Rotarians is that in the U.S., when you have a medical appointment or you go in for surgery, you know, it's very sterile. The doctor, the surgeon, I mean, he probably knows your name, but he doesn't know much about you, right? He doesn't know your story. He doesn't know your situation. And one of the things that one of the Rotarians told me a long time ago was that these families are terrified of coming into the hospital. It's taken so much effort just to get them to walk through the doors. I've actually had to run after people who, once they got there, they kind of changed their mind and said, this is too nerve-wracking for me. I don't know these people. I don't know the situation I'm leaving. So what we've tried to do is, knowing that families are really nervous, we've tried to change our strategy. So in the U.S., where medical situations are very cut and dried, you go to the hospital, you go to your appointment, and you kind of boom, 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 go through the actions. We serve coffee, we have snacks. For every family who comes, we assign a patient advocate. So one of our team members stays with that family the whole time. They stay with them through screening process. They're there the day of the surgery. They, chat with them, sit with them when the child's in surgery. And we've made it a point to introduce the surgeon to the families so that the surgeon isn't this unknown behind the curtain presence, but it's a real person who cares about the family and who cares about the child. And so it takes a little more time, it takes a little more effort, but we have seen remarkable differences where families would sit scared while their child was in surgery. Now we have a rooftop where we serve the coffee, and there are like some picnic tables on the top. Now the families are up on the roof with us, and we're chatting, and we're easing their fears. They're asking us questions about the surgery, whereas before, I don't think too many questions were asked about recovery time or what to expect in the future. So having that relationship allows the patients' families to feel more comfortable. I think that's probably one of the biggest. And then, of course, it's been really enlightening to know how challenging our patients' lives are, how families deal with extreme economic insecurity. And yet, even knowing that they have so few resources, their children and their child's health are so important to them that they will do anything to get their child to the hospital so that we're able to help. And I think that our team and our team members, we have a tremendous amount of respect for that. Thank you for the question. Thais?
Hello. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the additional support services that you've developed in order to make it easier for those families to be there, to go through this, understanding they've traveled long distances often to be there.
Thanks for the question. So that's a really important question because, again, I think when we originally started going on this trip to do this mission, before we really knew the families, we just kind of assumed they got there on the bus and assumed they got themselves home again. As we started learning the stories of the families, you remember Alejandro, the little guy whose mom and dad walked 3 hours and then they had to ride the bus for 12 hours. Well, oftentimes families have just enough money to get themselves to the hospital. So we've developed support services that we help finance whatever you need to get you home again. We pay for taxi fare, bus fare. Oftentimes people come and they don't have the money to feed themselves while they're in town. They're not in their home, so they're not able to cook. And so we have worked with a local Rotarian who provides meals. He provides breakfast, lunch, and dinner to the patients and their families, both at the hospital and wherever they happen to be staying. So transportation and meals, if families are going home to that extreme poverty and we're able to help them with a little bit of money, we're able to help with a little bit of money. We send packets of supplies home with families that include blankets, books for the kids, clothes for the kids. Anyone who needs any kind of a prescription or medical supplement of any sort, Iowa Most now provides that, because now we realize how families struggle so much on a day-to-day basis. So we want to try to eliminate any possible barrier that they're going to have both getting to us and getting home. So now that we're working with the Department of Public Health, this is going to be a tremendous asset, because now they're going to see the families before they even make their way to Huehuetenango. So they are going to provide transportation to any family, any patient who needs our surgery. They'll have the transportation provided by the Department of Public Health, which is going to be a really positive thing for us.
Thanks, Deb, for your presentation and all your hard work. Can you give us a sense of how many patients? I know there's 125 cataract patients, but I wondered in a given year, just recently, how it's changed since you started the program, where it is now, and just how many people are at issue.
Number question. So when Iowa Most started, 16, 17 years ago, they were seeing for screening day. So on screening day, the first day, all these families come with the kids who are potential patients. And they were seeing on screening day 100 to 120 kiddos. Not every child is eligible for surgery. Kids have to weigh 10 pounds. They have to be somewhat healthy to undergo the surgery. So in the beginning, the team was doing 80, 90 surgeries the first few years. Then it started dropping to maybe 60, 70, 40, 50. In the last couple of years, we've been doing 25 surgeries a year. So we've, of course, been asking ourselves, what's the reason for that? Why are the numbers dropping? Is it because kids aren't being born with cleft? We know from the stats that that's not true. Is it because there are so many other medical missions there that kids are getting the services and they just don't have the need? We didn't know. But this is why our interaction with the chief of the Department of Public Health is going to change this mission dramatically, because within the Department of Huehuetenango, there are 35 districts, and there's a health official assigned to every single district in Huehuetenango. These health officials are reporting to the chief of the Department of Public Health that there are hundreds and hundreds of kids in the Western Highlands who still suffer from cleft lip and cleft palate birth defects that have not received the surgery yet. And so the reason is we just weren't finding them. The numbers were dropping because in Guatemala, it's very difficult for us to recruit patients when we're here in the U.S. We rely on our Guatemalan partners. And for the Rotary Club to find the patients, that's challenging too, because they all have their full-time work and they have certain areas of Huehuetenango, the department that they go to, but they don't really travel into the remotest part of Huehuetenango. And so working with the Department of Public Health now to identify the existing patients, and every new baby that's born is registered with the Department of Public Health. So every new baby that's born with cleft will be registered and will be referred to us, will be referred to the Iowa Most Medical Mission. So we are actually considering the possibility that maybe we need to do 2 missions a year. Once we get the process worked out, that we're working seamlessly with the Department of Public Health, we'll have a better idea of what the true needs are, and then we'll assess what we can do to help. So we definitely anticipate the numbers going up.
Thank you so much, Deb. We have 2 questions online. The first one is, how has COVID-19 impacted it? Are they getting vaccinated there? What are your concerns about going?
Good question. COVID-19 has definitely impacted Guatemala. not only the health, but the economy. Guatemala relies on some tourism, not as much as other countries, but when Guatemala shut down, when COVID happened, not only did tourists stop coming, but all the open markets, the outdoor markets. Guatemala relies on individual trading. People set up their own individual businesses, and all of that came to a standstill. So there are tremendous economic problems caused by COVID. They are getting vaccine. Especially the people in the cities have access to vaccine. It's been a very slow process, but it is happening. It's now filtering up into Huehuetenango. There are vaccines. My Spanish teacher, who lives in Lake Atitlan area of Guatemala, she's received the vaccine. Our Rotarian friends in Huehuetenango have received the vaccine, but not all the patient families. When you go into the remote areas, they have not received the vaccine yet. How does that impact us? We have done a lot of working with our partners in Huehuetenango to develop specific strategies to deal with it. So we will be, when we return in March 2022, we will be masked at every moment of every day with N95s. We will remain socially distanced. So we generally do a lot of socializing. We'll go out to restaurants. We'll walk home with our friends from Huehuetenango, back to the hotel where we stay. All of that will stop. So we'll limit our social interaction. And then the Department of Public Health will give a COVID test to every patient. And generally, patients bring the whole family. This year, we are asking the patient to come with one adult family member just to lower the numbers. So they will have a COVID test provided to the family members before we see them. They'll be housed at the military base, as I mentioned, to help keep social distancing to a minimum. So we are definitely taking some strategies. And again, we're not deciding what those strategies are here, sitting in Iowa City. Our partners in Huehuetenango are helping us. We're working together to determine what is the safest way to do this. They absolutely want the mission to come back. It's not good for their people to have us not come. They have a tremendous need that if we're not there is not being met, and yet we don't want to put the people at more risk. And so we'll try to make our final decision on February 1st. We're proceeding as we are going to go, but if cases get worse, of course we won't be able to.
Thank you. The other question is rather general, but we have some global public health students online, and I think also in the audience, and they want to know what kind of advice you have for students that are interested in working in global public health. I know it's a big question, but I guess they'd like you to take a crack at it.
My main piece of advice is say yes and do it. There is so much for you to learn. Your world will open up tremendously. Everything you think you know about this world will change when you actually work with another culture. And I guess my biggest piece of advice would be dig in deep. Try to make your interactions not just medical or superficial, but get to know the people. The more you know about the people, the better help I think you'll be able to provide. Probably good advice for any culture, this culture and others. Mm-hmm.
That seems like a terrific place to end.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been a joy and a pleasure to talk to you about Iowa Most today.
Good. Thank you so much, Deb, for your wonderful presentation today. And you may be one of the only people now who knows that in thanks for speaking, we'd like to give you our coveted ICFRC mug for wonderful Don David coffee or tea or the beverage of your choice. But
Thank you, Tess.
Really appreciate you taking the time to speak with the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council today.